whatever is there in blue are questions for you to think about, reflect on. We won't have too much time today to discuss them, but if this was a live session, these are things where we would have paused and take responses from you. But these are things you can think about. Okay, so you know who is the bride, who is the groom, and you can think in terms of both brides and both grooms also. That is perfectly fine. Okay, but it's a good idea to just think about who you think is which and why. And then, yeah, this is a kind of personal question. What are you looking for? uh, what interests you? These are very important, the next two questions. How do you react to art? Okay, what image it brings to you, uh, and stuff like that. And then the same thing for math. Okay, what does it invoke in you? What is the image of math in your mind? Okay, so these are just to get started, some food for thought, some things that you may want to reflect on. Okay, so going ahead, um, here are some of my thoughts, and please feel to add yours when we open it up. um, this is math is regarded kind of like the most important subject, and so the math exam comes usually at the end with the longest gap, etc., etc. So undeniable respect from all quarters and stuff like that. Contrary to that, art is completely has a different status, so to speak, right? um, when it is art, it's good to have. If we have the resources, then let's go for it. That's kind of how it is viewed. Okay, so very neglected in that sense. So kind of polar opposites of math. And the way it invokes feelings, um, you know math usually evokes very extreme feelings. Most people don't like it, hate it, and usually it comes from fear, or it comes because I don't understand why this is happening, why we do this stuff. So lack of understanding, fear, hatred, all those things. And there are some people who just simply love it. Okay, so on the other hand, art doesn't usually get associated with too much fear or hatred, too much negative emotion. I mean, some like it, and there are some who just absolutely love it, right? So those are kind of like the contrasts. Now, let us look at some similarities. Trust me, there are many. This may not come as surprise, right? As an artist, you try to strive for a perfection, whether it is performing arts or fine arts. You know where you want to reach, and you're not satisfied till you reach that point. Same goes for mathematics. It is not halfway. You know you have to get it right, or you know what you are looking for, and you're not pleased until and unless you reach that level. So if you want to master anything, you need practice. So both demand that, right? Anybody who is in music knows you have to do rivas. Any painter has to perfect the skills of painting. Same by math, everybody knows. And the problem is both can become extremely product oriented, and the process gets ignored. So you want a masterpiece, or you want the correct result, and you don't really care about the person who is trying to achieve that. Okay, so that journey gets less importance, journey gets overlooked most of the time. I mean, many of you may recall that or have seen this, how a typical art class can be. The teacher draws something and you are supposed to copy that ditto. Similarly, if the way a math teacher solves a sum, you are supposed to just follow him or her, right? So there are those unwanted similarities as well. I'm getting some lines on my screen and I'm not sure if others are getting the same things as well. Okay. That's not from my end. Okay. Um, so teaching both math and art can become extremely, algorithmic and don't have any joy element in it. But both are enjoyed if there is scope of exploration and you are allowed to, be creative. Trust me, in math also that is possible. And the way our textbooks are getting designed, the way syllabus, etc., has been changing, etc., that allows for more and more room for this. Plus, you can do much more. So here is one short reading that I would recommend. Here is the link, and we hope to share with you all these links, etc., later on. In this one, the mathematician Lockhart, in the first 2+ pages, he's basically talking about two nightmares, and he's kind of connecting that to math. So it's no formula, nothing. You can just read it as a story, and you will enjoy it. Trust me. Now, so now that we know the bride and the groom, so how do they meet or where can they meet? Right? So here's a question for you because you may have experienced this. Uh, and where do you think they can meet? Okay, again, based on your experience or, guess or extrapolate. Nowadays math does include a lot of pictures, drawing, etc., coloring, shading, and all of that. That is a very good place for you to figure out if a child has some aesthetic sense, how much, etc., etc. So we'll show you some examples. Shapes. Anytime you can get children to play with shapes, it's an awesome thing. It not only gets them to be creative, but it really helps them understand shapes in a much, much, much better way. I can guarantee, I can give you many anecdotes that I have seen in my life and with other children as well. When you play, you basically discover many things, and those little aha moments are what gets you hooked on, and you start playing more and more. Also, if as an adult you feel shapes are not your thing, I have a colleague older than me, and she felt that way, but now she's a completely different. She actually plays with shapes, and you know, so you can start enjoying things even as an adult, even at a later life. So, and they are often extremely therapeutic. Tiling. Nowadays, the textbooks have a lot of tiling, and that's another place where you can actually do a lot of this exploration and creativity. Okay. NCRT textbooks are great because you'll get a lot of food for thought, and you can extract a lot out. You can take the cue from the textbook and go, deep into many things. Anything to do with patterns. Patterns has an element of aesthetics built in, and there can be pattern with numbers too, and of course symmetry. So in each of these we can spend a lot of time. Unfortunately, we don't have that, so I'll give you some glimpses and basically let you explore as much as you want. So these are few things as an adult that you can do. uh, Ask open-ended questions, so questions which has more than one answer. Okay. You can create questions where as the child answers, a pattern will emerge, and the pattern will have a self-corrective feature inbuilt in it. I'll give you an example, and definitely provide for exploration. Trust me, it is definitely possible in math with numbers as well as shapes, etc. And once children get interested, then get them to be more adventurous and find out all different possible things within that circumstance. Okay. So let me give you some examples. Now, say for example, you are learning decimals, okay, or fractions or even counting, okay, something like that. And if it's decimal, you want to a child to color 0.2 or 2 out of 10, okay, or something like that, or 20 out of 100, okay. So this is a very typical way of coloring a 10 by 10 grid. However, a child can also do this, okay. Now, obviously, and both are correct. So this is an open-ended question. But as a teacher or as the adult, you get a sense of the child who does the second one, the one on the right. Okay. And these will help you understand that child or foster those things within him or her, right? When you create reverse question papers or worksheets, etc., you can use these as well. This is another example actually from a textbook. So you have numbers, and you have in this semicircular array, and then you have this color code, right? So green for certain numbers, red from certain, purple for certain, etc. Now notice the blue will be at this center, right? And then this one at the end on the outermost circle, um, this one and this one, these three are going to be red. So the way it has been designed, you will end up getting a, the color. Once you color all of them, it will have a mirror symmetry, the line symmetry. So that's a self-correcting feature of that. Now these are not too hard to design, and they can be easily designed. Better still, you can ask children to create something like that, which will include their sense of numbers as well as sense of symmetry. And I'm sure they will find it fun to create. And when they create it, you basically get a pool of things that you can use in the next class or next year, etc. So children get engaged, and you have more stuff, more ready-made worksheets from them. Win-win situation. Now I'm going to share two dot sheets with you, and you can do tons of stuff with them. This is called a rectangular dot sheet. So if you stare at it, you will see lots of squares and rectangles, right? Whatever you can do on dot sheets, you can also do on the square grid
ಒಂದ್
notebooks.
ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಸಮೋಸ ಇಟ್ಟಿದೀನಿ ನೋಡ್ರಿ ಅರ್ಧ ಅದನ್ನ ತಿನ್ನು ಅದನ್ನ.
Okay, can you please go on mute? This is dot sheet is quite popular. Uh, the advantage of this dot sheet over the square grid is this one doesn't have lines, so it kind of gives you more freedom. If you like doodling, you can use these to doodle, and you can draw lots of patterns on it. You can do lots of stuff. It's very difficult to kind of tell you all you can do with dot sheets. And it goes to some higher level stuff also. So it's not just primary, but definitely primary, upper primary. And if you play enough with dot sheets, later on when they hit coordinate geometry, it's going to be a piece of cake for them. The other one is called isometric dot sheet. And if you stare at it, you will probably see lots of triangles, right? So this one is less popular, and anybody who plays Chinese checker will kind of identify this grid as something familiar. So again, a lot of stuff which can be done on this as well. mathematically there are certain nuances and stuff. So both can and should be used for both the bride and the groom. Okay, you can do both math and art, and there is a lot of places where math can lead to art and art can lead to math. If you go online and search dot sheets, you can get plenty of examples of both, and they can be downloaded and photocopied and used a lot. Okay, now tangrams are something that many of you may be familiar with. Many textbooks, including NCRT, has them, so they can be used to create all these shapes and stuff. And again, you can buy books on it. The net is full of that. Mathematically, also tangrams are super duper rich. When you play with tangrams, there are many things that you observe, and this happened with me as a child. I got introduced to tangram when I was in class 6, and I observed something, but I couldn't explain it because that was the pre-Pythagorean era of my life. But later, when I learned the Pythagorean Goras theorem, it all made sense. So there's a link below, and if you go there, you can just see how you can make a tangrams and play with it. All you need is a piece of cardboard, okay, and you can make it out of that. This is a relatively less known, but again quite popular thing. The 12 shapes that you see here are all made of 5 squares attached to each other, and they are called pentominos. Obviously, the pento comes from the 5. This is quite popular, and this is also entered many of the textbooks. So there are a lot of things you can do. The way you can kind of create shapes of, animals, things, human beings, etc., with tangrams, the same thing can be done with polyominoes as well. um, these 5 are called tetrominos because they are made of 4 squares. Then we have the trominos, the domino, and the monomino. So all together, these are called polyominoes. I have just recently got interested into hexominos. So if you have 6 squares, and the reason for getting interested in them is if you have a cube and you open it up, okay, so that it becomes flat, all the 6 faces of the cube becomes flat, okay, lie flat, open on the, that is called a net of a cube, and that will have 6 squares, right? So uh, so all the nets of the cubes, all possible nets, are hexominos, right? But then there will be some hexominos which won't be a net of the cube. So that has got me curious, and I'm kind of exploring that right now. So, and this idea did not come to me originally. One of our students were doing something with nets of cubes and cuboids, and it kind of came from there. So again, these again can be made easily with cardboard, and the link basically tells you how to make, and also gives you certain links on what all you can do with it. Okay. Um, Now after this, there are a lot of other things you can do with which connects math and art a lot. Symmetry is definitely one of them. Then there are patterns, and we will talk about 2 types of patterns: freeze patterns and wallpaper patterns, and fold and cut. Fold and cut is something that you can do. So let's take a look at them. So these are the 7 possible freeze patterns. Just think of these as possible borders of, say, a sari or something. Okay, so it kind of grows one in either way along one dimension. Okay, and John Conway, who was, unfortunately, he's one of the victims of COVID. He passed away recently. So he has this way of communicating math with common people and everybody. So this is his way of representing them. Okay. Now this has an element of symmetry in it. and it can be done as an activity, right? You can actually get children to create this kind of footprints and stuff like that. So, and if you see a pattern, you can try to ask them, okay, which one of these freeze pattern does it match, right? So this is one of the things. So this is where a pattern stretches along only one dimension on either way. Wallpaper are patterns which stretch on both ways, right? So, I mean, a wall is essentially two dimensional, right? It has length and height. So, these are patterns which stretch both ways. And again, I mean, think of the pattern in the print in your kameez or in your shirt or, any piece of any cloth for that matter. Um, and these kind of patterns come in. Um, all the Islamic structures, etc., they have this jharis and patterns, and they had essentially figured out all 17 possible patterns long, long time ago. Okay. Um, so these are things that can be explored. As I said, on dot sheets, you can explore all of them. And you can just quickly kind of eyeball and see that some of the patterns will work better in isometric dot sheet, while others will work better in the rectangular dot sheet, right? So definitely all of this can be explored. And you can challenge children to, create one of each, or, put some restriction. Um, so for fold and cut, the basic idea is, you fold a paper, or it can be newspaper or some used paper. I actually meticulously save all the wrappers of biscuits, etc. I mean, they're good because, it's a nice silvery inside. So, you can actually use it for decoration also. So you fold them multiple times, and the fold lines, assuming the paper is rectangular, so the fold lines have to be, vertical and horizontal. And then you make small cuts, okay? And I mean, cuts so that small pieces actually fall off, completely gets taken off. And then when you unfold it, you see a pattern, right? So try this out. In the next slide, I will show you some pictures and figure out which freeze patterns can you generate through this. I mean, and which ones you cannot. And then comes the why from the math part of me. Why some cannot be generated and others can be, right? So here are some very, very small examples. Okay. So in the first case, it just took a circle, folded it into half, made those two cuts, opened it up, it kind of looks like a nose and a mouth, right? Now, very basic. In the next one, again, it's a circle which has been folded one, two, three times, then two cuts made, and this is the resulting thing, right? This is not what I was mentioning, but these are also fun things to try out. And then the last one is what I was mentioning with respect to the freeze patterns in particular. So you fold it, twice, and you end up, you cut these two parts, and this is what you get, right? So, uh, so that was the fold and cut stuff. And what I feel is, I find interesting in this is you can use this on anything. Cutting in general is quite therapeutic also, especially to get rid of negative emotions like anger. Okay, so one suggestion is that you can, if you have a child who is very upset on something, you can ask that child to try this out. Take a piece of paper which is anyway you are going to throw away or something, not something very important, of course. Fold it, cut, okay, and then open it up and do lots of these. And once he or she has probably calmed down a bit, then you can ask the child to color it also. And that will be kind of like a mandala meditation to an extent. Okay. And so, yeah, it might be soothing. So, just some ideas you can try out. You can try them yourselves as well. the wedding. Okay, there is something called proof without words. So the visual is so powerful and kind of universally understood by all. Now there are tons of proof without word. I will give you just one and hope that it's not too difficult. Yes, I'm taking the Pythagoras theorem. So here is a right triangle whose sides are A, B, and C respectively, and then we get 4 copies of that and they form a square, right? So these are all A's, these are all B's, and inside you have all C's, right? Of course, you have to prove that this forms this the inside, the empty space inside is a square and not a rhombus, and it can be done easily with the math they know up to class uh, at the elementary level. Now what we do is we are going to move 2 of the triangles. So notice carefully. Okay, so this is like, so before that, this is A square, right? If you look at the vertical side, and this is B square, right? And this is C square. So we have to, C square is very clear, it's the empty space. But is there any way we can rearrange the remaining part to get that A square and B square? Let's see. So notice that bottom part you can shift up to this medium blue part that now appeared. This other part you can shift up to be the green triangle that just appeared. Excuse me. So the empty space that was here is now become the empty space covered by these 2 squares. Okay. So the original empty space, which was the square, was C square. The current empty space is A square plus B square. And all we have done is rearrange these 4 triangles. So the total area of this whole big square remains the same, right? So if these 4 triangles take up the same space in both arrangements, the remaining areas must be equal. So that's why we have A square plus B square equal to C square. Now it is better done if you actually take any rectangle, halve it, and then halve both those rectangles diagonally to get the 4 triangles. So I encourage it to try you out. The reason for sharing this is usually the proof of Pythagoras, which is commonly seen in textbooks, uses similarity and therefore comes at class 9 or 10. But this doesn't use any of that. It does use some properties of parallelogram, and therefore it is very doable within class 8 with the proof. Okay. Now, going further, the things where art and math do come very, very close to each other are fractals. Then, so fractals are kind of self-similar objects. If you zoom into them, it seems to be the same thing repeating again and again. But trust me, this is not as boring as it seems. Look for fractals on YouTube and will be mesmerized by the gorgeous videos that are up there. Okay. Origami, of course. And I'll share with you a TED talk by Robert Lang, who is if I remember correctly, he's a physicist, of course, does a lot of math, and an origamist. And he shows in the TED talk how he uses math to do origami. So, artists can and do need math as well. Kirigami is different in the sense, I mean, you can guess the origin to be Japanese. Origami, you take a piece of paper, fold it, and you are not allowed to cut. And just by folding a piece of paper, you create something. In kirigami, you do cut, and there are many types of kirigami. So you use cut and fold. Sometimes you use many parts of the same shape and put them together, join them to form something beautiful. So again, that also involves a huge amount of math, especially if you're trying to design and all. This fold and cut is different from the previous one. In this, you are allowed to fold in any way or as much time as you want, and then you are allowed one cut along one straight line. And once you make that cut, okay, and the whole paper should, the folded paper should come out in two parts when you cut, and one of the part will be the desired shape that you want, and the other part will be the hole left behind by your desired shape. It can be a simple thing like you know, a square or an equilateral triangle or any triangle for that matter. Okay, the math you need to do any triangle is within the syllabus, not up to elementary but definitely secondary level. So that's all from my end, and this is just to give you some ideas on what are the possibilities. And here is my contact information if any of you want to get in touch with me for any of these further details, etc. Okay, so that's from my end. So let me stop share.
Thank you so much, Swati. That was very, very interesting, insightful. Some of you have messaged me about the links that Swati has shared. As she mentioned earlier, we will be sending an email with all the links she referred to in her presentation, so not to worry. Now, we will be taking questions. You can either text message your question to me, or if you'd like to speak, please use the reactions to raise your hand and I will unmute you.
Okay, I can see somebody is in the video. Suma is raising her hand.
1 second. Yes, Suma.
Yes, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good. Okay, ma'am, I just want some help for the topic integers through art. How can we introduce the topic integers?
Okay, so that for that you have my number, I hope. Okay, or my email, and you can feel free to send me a message or email me, and we can take that offline. I'm not saying everything can be done through art, but yes, if you have some question related to integers, do send them to me.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Nidhi, 1 second.
Ma'am, can you give us some attractive ideas for holiday homework? Like where we can show the integrated work of maths and art together?
Yes,
some idea about
Yes, sure. So two things very straightforward which can has lot of potential are polyominoes or pentominoes and tangrams, and these can be made quite easily. If it's a child in upper primary, he or she should be able to make it without adult supervision. If the child is in primary, then yes, a bit of adult supervision is needed. Beyond that, you can have a collection of different shapes. So for example, if you have lots of bottle caps, so a lot of circles, so what all different shapes you can arrange them with. Okay, and so those kind of things are there. You can create something called a low cost rangometry, and those can be used for a lot of exploration. So if you're interested, just send me an email and I'll share the details with you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I'll share my email.
Also, dot sheets. Lots of possibilities in dot sheets. Just take a look at NCERT textbook, especially primary, a bit of upper primary also. You will get lots of ideas there.
Suma mentioned that she has worked with tangrams with her 4th grade students. Would you like to share any thoughts on that?
Yes, ma'am, definitely. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, please.
Okay. See what I do. I just show them how to make a tangram. That video is downloaded, and we have the facility of a projector, so that even I do with them. So each and every child make a tangram with the book bind. Old book, I tell them the old books bind. You just bring it. So along with me, they make a tangram puzzle, and two periods almost we use for making a lot of creative things. They make wonderful. I just show that pictures, and I ask, okay, now let us see which group or which child is doing it fast. So they make it wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. This can keep people engaged for a long time.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
Ma'am, another thing about bottle tops. With the bottle tops, I think primary almost all the topics can be covered. I
Yes.
do LCM, HCF,
Yes.
everything using bottle tops.
Yes, yes. So one lady I know, she did something very interesting, and then somebody followed it up in somewhere else. She, in a Jet Airlines flight, she actually got the air hostess to collect all the bottle caps and give it to her. Okay.
Okay.
And somebody liked this idea and tried it out in a Rajdhani Express with greater success. You don't get so much time during a flight, but in Rajdhani you have much time. And those people who were serving food, etc., and all of that, they happily obliged and did that. So
Okay.
very simple ideas which can be done.
That is true.
You can just start collecting your toothpaste caps and things like that, and a lot of things are possible.
That is true, ma'am. That's true.
Kalai has a question. Can you explain how to introduce congruence in an easy and also interesting way for students?
Yes, yes. So again, one of the students worked on it. So the essential idea of congruence is when two things overlap completely. Okay, that's the essential idea. So if you have two shapes, right, and see whether they overlap exactly. So for example, if you take two leaves of the same plant, it's not necessary that they will exactly be copies of each other, right? If the same person make two rotis, they will not be exact copies of each other, right? Not necessarily. But if you use a cookie cutter, then it will be identical copies, right? So right, if you fold something, right, if you take, for example, okay, let me turn on my video for a short time. So suppose you take a piece of paper and you have folded it, and now if you cut something out, right, both the cut pieces will be identical. So this is a very good way to show congruence, the basic idea of congruence. And then you can say ki, okay, so if we say two lines are congruent, what does it mean? If we say two angles are congruent, what does it mean? And then get into, say, triangles maybe, or maybe circles and then triangles. Simple to complex.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? Kalai says thank you. Vishal has made a point. Many times maths is taken as a single thing about which a decision is to be made, but maths is hardly a single thing for the learner. Then as many times we observe why our teacher education programs ignore the other elements involved in teaching of mathematics. Is the question clear? Or Vishal, may I unmute you and you can ask the question directly?
In a sense, it is clear, but yeah, if Vishal wants to voice it out, I think that's great.
Audio isn't working on his side. Vishal, I just unmuted you. Would you like to just try again? No, he's having trouble. Okay, so
Okay.
Swati, would you like to give it a try?
Sure.
Okay.
See, I understood what he's saying.
Okay, great.
Okay, to put it very blankly and simply, teacher education in our country is in a very, very, very bad shape. Okay. And it is true for all subjects, definitely math. Okay. The thing is that, as some people say, and I do agree with them, in many classrooms, what happens in the name of math is actually polar opposite of math. Okay. And I mean, let's not blame the teachers because they may not have experienced anything else. They were taught in that way, and nobody taught them to teach in any better way, right? So what teachers need are maybe more sessions like this, which can give them ideas. And frankly, most teachers want to do a good job. They really care about the children they teach. They really care whether the children learn or not. And they know that when children get excited about something, it becomes so much easier for the teacher, right? So teachers are very open, but we need more such programs that reach out to teachers, give them ideas, seed ideas, which the teacher can explore with uh, his or her students, just like Suma had explored Tangram with her students, right? So, and when you explore these, you come up with newer things, you get more and more ideas, and it all becomes much more fun.
Thank you. There's a question by Ganga. I have a 7-year-old who loves numbers and math in particular and has worked with tangrams. I would like to know how she can take this a step further for her age. How can this be taken up as an extension?
Okay, again, if you can send me an email, I can send you many such resources. There are few resources which I can point out right now. As mentioned, I'm part of Azim20 University, and we have one magazine that comes out 3 times a year called At Right Angles. Every At Right Angles has something called a pullout at the end of it. It's a part of magazine that you can actually take off. And all these pullouts are on specific topics. There are 15 pullouts on various issues on primary math, okay, like place value, addition, subtraction, all the way like that. And now we have many pullouts on upper primary, including one on integers. Now, many of these pullouts has lot of activities that children can do. And there are a lot of activities in some of the pullouts which will be perfectly suited for the 7-year-old who already enjoys math. So so we are going to send you a lot of links and stuff. So the links of pullouts and at right angles will be part of that. Okay. So give us a week and you will get that.
Thank you. We have a message from Kumar. Mathematics in a genius grows through imagination and intuition. Art overlaps exactly in these aspects with maths. I often have trouble trying to project or teach math through imagination and storytelling. Could you share any idea or resource to teach maths through storytelling, both for a young age and especially for a middle or high schooler?
Primary is easier. Again, NCRT textbooks have lots of good examples. As it goes into upper primary and secondary, it becomes a bit harder because some of the concepts may be there to fulfill a mathematical need, and therefore it may be more difficult to connect it with a story or something, but doesn't say that it's impossible. I would recommend that you check out this blog. It's called Math with Bad Drawings. Okay. And this guy basically draws a tons of cartoons and has stories and stuff like that. Not necessarily all for children, but some of them are just too good. He also posts very regularly on Facebook. Say math, if you just search math with bad drawings, you will get it. And you will get lots of ideas there too. As far as specific concepts are concerned, again, best will be to write to me, then I can customize to your needs. And if you don't have something, we will hunt and search, right? And frankly, you can't do much math unless you have an imagination about it. And once you develop a certain intuition, a mental picture, then it really makes life so much easier. Then you don't need to memorize algorithms and stuff like that. Frankly, that is one of the reasons why some of us love math. We don't have to remember things. We can recreate them if we forget. Okay, that's the beauty of it.
Okay, thank you. Jay Shankar, I am not clear about what the question is exactly. It's the message says, I'm a special educator teaching children Lexia. Can I unmute you, and would you like to share your question up front? This is actually the last question we'll be taking for the day. One second, Jay Shankar. I'm unable to mute you. You can unmute yourself from your end. I've given you access. Yes.
Yeah. Now are you able to hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Good evening, Ms. Swati. I am a special educator working with children having dyslexia and dyscalculia. Any specific resources that you would have already generated for? Of course, I've seen some of the pullouts of Right Angles magazine, and they are just wonderful. What we generally do is, like, whatever links, general resources available, we try to modify according to the child's needs. But I would like to know, have you developed any such things specifically for them, children with learning difficulties?
Frankly, we haven't had the opportunity, and I would love to work with you on this.
Okay.
I mean, we can work this together in terms of, I can ask you to try something and you can tell whether it is working or not, and together we can kind of build it up.
Sure.
See, with dyslexia, if I understand it, in my limited understanding of it, it is more to do with reading, writing, right? So when it comes to math, if you can make it visual, and that's at the core of what I primarily do. If the concept building part or understanding how algorithms work, etc., that all can be done visually with manipulative, so children actually move around, and so they know what is happening and why is happening, that might help.
Yeah, that's what we have been doing.
Yeah.
In specific, maybe I'll get in touch with you through
with dyscalculia. I have had less experience, so to speak. So,
okay.
Again, as you said, that we can work together, and I really would like to do that.
Sure. I think it's a good opportunity. I'll definitely get in touch with you. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I think that's it for questions for today. Suma, I can see you have a question. Maybe you can just write an email to Swati and she can get back to you. Yes? Okay, great. Thank you so much, Swati. This was really wonderful. And I think this open discussion also was fascinating in terms of the spectrum we covered, in terms of age, in terms of children with special needs. And thank you to the participants as well who have shared their experiences and views. So we will be closing the meeting now. We just wanted to share with the participants, many of you are new to our database of the Foundation's database. So just a quick point that please keep visiting our website, riyadhfoundation.org, for regular updates. This video will also be shared on the website. And if you want to stay updated on upcoming events, it would be great if you like our Facebook page, Riyadh Foundation. Then you will definitely be the first to be updated about all events coming up. That's it from my side. Swati, thank you so much for being a part of this interaction. Oops, Swati seems to be...
Yeah, sorry, I did that myself.
Oh.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. We will close the meeting now. And yes, once again, all links, contact information, resources will be shared with you shortly. We will take a little time since Swati wanted to put together some more resources, in fact. So we will get back to you by next weekend on Saturday with all details. Great. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a lovely evening. Good night. Bye-bye.